The year was 1992, and I finally convinced my parents to buy me my first PC. Well, I guess it wasn't my first PC, but rather a PC for everyone in the house. I was 14 years old at the time and didn't have a cooking clue what was going on in the computer world. My computer experience consisted of playing games on our neighbor's Apple II and using one of the two PCs at school on the odd occasion. And that was mostly just for typing some text in professional write or creating a graph in some kind of app. Was it Printmaster, or was that only for birthday cards? When it came to buying a PC, I had no idea what we really needed. I looked in the newspapers for ads and most of them were for XTs and ATs, but I didn't know the differences. I kind of figured that bigger was better, and that 16 MHz was faster than 12 MHz. But why did the specs say 4.77 and 12 MHz? What did I know about turbo clock speeds? In high school, most of my classmates had PCs at home, and I listened to what they had to say. I started buying the SA Computer magazine, but a lot of the articles went over my head, and I guess I only looked at the pretty pictures. Armed with information from my very reliable sources, I dragged my dad to PC stores to get some quotes. We finally decided on a 386 SX25 with 2 MB of RAM, a 80 MB hard drive, 5.25-inch floppy drive, and 1 MB Super VGA graphics. Oh, and a Panasonic dot matrix printer. A 486 would have been nice, but it was just too expensive. When we got home, my dad told me I'm not allowed to switch on a PC before I've read the manual. So, I had to read the manual. And the only manual that came with a PC was a motherboard manual. And that was torture, since it was written in horrible translated English. I had no idea what they were going on about, so I gave up, connected the monitor and keyboard, and switched on the beast. And nothing. The PC got power, but nothing happened after that. Of course I felt horrible, since I didn't finish the manual, so I couldn't tell my dad what was going on. After a while, I switched off the PC and switched it back on. And there it worked. Looking back at that now, I realized that was when I learned the first step in troubleshooting. Reboot. But that also means that there was a problem with the PC that I only discovered later. An expansion card was bent and caused the PC to freeze on the odd occasion. This led to much frustration that caused me to open the case and start digging around. And this is how I started tinkering with PCs. Maybe that bent expansion card was a blessing in disguise. In this video, I just want to go through the MS-DOS 5 installation that came pre-installed on my PC. For the video I used the 1 floppy disk version, or as we call it here in South Africa, stiffy disks. This version is supposed to be the same as the 3 disk version, but there are a few files missing. After the install, PC boots either to the command prompt or to DOS shell, which was a basic graphical file manager released with DOS 4. My PC booted into a menu program where you could run your programs from. Here I start the MS-DOS editor that was one of the new features of MS-DOS 5. If only I knew about it when I got my first mouse. Yes, the PC didn't come with a mouse, since most DOS programs didn't require one. It made navigation in games much easier though, so that's why I went out and bought one. There was no install file on the disk to install the mouse driver, and the manual didn't explain how to do it. Somewhere I heard that you need to add the driver to the autoexec.bat file, so I just copied the file, not realizing that it will overwrite the autoexec.bat file. The PC wasn't very happy after that, and of course it didn't boot into the menu program anymore. I can't remember if I did anything else to try and recover from my mistake. I probably did, and messed up the PC even further. I asked our neighbor to have a look. He said it might be a good idea to reinstall DOS, and he gave me a copy of DOS 6 and later DOS 6.2, and that is what I used for a very long time. Here I'm running DOS shell with a mouse driver installed. I think I only discovered now that MS-DOS came with its own mouse driver, but I don't know if my mouse would have worked with it. I used DOS shell quite a bit back in the day, but I still prefer to use a plain command prompt to do my file management. Even though you could split the screen into 2 panes, you couldn't drag and drop files between them. You still had to type the paths of where you wanted to copy or move the files. In my opinion, there wasn't a major reason to use DOS shell if you were efficient with a command prompt. DOS 5 came with QBASIC that replaced GWBASIC. At that point in time, I didn't know what the difference was between MS-DOS editor and QBASIC, since they look the same and they both could open text files. QBASIC is the development environment for the basic programming language, and it seems like MS-DOS Edit is QBASIC in a simple edit mode. DOS 5 came with 4 QBASIC example programs, 2 of them games. Here is the one game, Gorillas, an artillery type game. It is a 2-player game where the players throw bananas at each other. I can't remember that the game was this slow, but I didn't really play it on my 386 in the 90s. I only found out about the game after I lost my DOS 5 installation due to my mouse driver mishap. Apparently the logic in the game was quite something for its time, and it had some awesome PC speaker sound. The other game is Nibbles, a snake type of game. I think this PC is too fast to run the game and therefore throws a divide by zero error. I'll have to look into that. Okay, that was supposed to be the end of the video, but in the meantime I dug out a utility called MoSlow that I got with my Space Quest games. The utility can simulate a much slower PC. The PC used in this video has a Pentium II type Celeron processor with 256MB RAM. I used MoSlow with its default settings to reduce the speed to XT type speeds, and then the PC is slow enough to run Nibbles. That just sounds wrong. In the next few videos I'm going to look at Windows 1 and Windows 2 running on DOS 5, and then DOS 6 and Windows 3. I hope to see you in the next one.